All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Carl Rominger here with the Christmas edition of Weekend Appointment. 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions, 540-0580. Whatever you guys want to talk about. You want to talk about some politics, too? We'll do that today. We can talk about the fiscal cliff. We can talk about gun control. We can talk about all kinds of things. But if you have legal questions, divorces, personal injury case, you've been hurt in a car accident or know somebody who has been, happy to talk to you about your rights, your responsibilities, limited tort, full tort, all those good insurance issues that come up, wrongful death suits, whatever you guys want to talk about. Got problems with the neighbors and the fencing. That comes up quite a bit, too. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here. As you know, I'm a lawyer here in the Mid-State. You can go to romingerlaw.com to learn more about our firm or to contact us. George, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. You won't recognize me, Carl. You guys handled the case for me at HRC through Steve about a year and a half ago. But ran into Steve the other day. Wish you guys all a Merry Christmas. Hope everybody has great holidays.
Thanks.
Good, sir. Question is this. My wife, I have a good concealed carry permit. I have had it since the probably mid-'80s, renewed it every 5 years, obviously. My wife's had one since probably 1990-ish, so it's been renewed probably 3 or 4 times. She recently applied for a renewal and received her check back from the sheriff's office, et cetera, denied due to something picked up in her in the background check. And now she works for a financial institution that requires substantial FBI background checks, et cetera, and that's all been clean for years. I mean, any time you're in that business, they have to have that, and she's been fine. Never had a problem. This is the first time anything's ever kicked up. It denied the permit. She sent the appeal letter processing into the state police and received it took them forever and ever, and she had to actually call to boost them along. But she just got the letter back stating why that she had been denied, that the state police picked up something in her background. Back in they're saying in 1970, in Washington, D.C., she had a well, I don't want to really go into any detail as far as what the charge was, but a charge, and she is narcotics possession. She claims, she says that it was, that back in she was a child of the 60s, I guess you could say.
Right.
Like 19 at the time, and it says it was incense. I don't know or care whether it was or not. They claimed it was suspected hashish. And,
well, all we care about at this day and age is was she convicted of the charge or not?
No, she was not. She actually left D.C. and moved to another state and just figured it went away. Well, I explained to her, no, things don't just go away. Well, she was just being blind to the consequences, et cetera. What can she do? Is there something she can do? Should I call you guys next week and should we set them up to,
if it's handled? We'd have to figure out what the disposition of it is. But if the disposition was never finalized, it's only one of two things could be. It could either be a warrant or a disposition unreported. So we'd have to figure out what the disposition is. But yeah, it shouldn't be blocking her if she was never convicted of it.
Okay, I did run. I mean, I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. Several years back, but when she first, and I had completely forgotten about this. This is going back to like 1995 when she had first asked me or mentioned it to me. I had a buddy of mine run and there's no warrants or anything out like that out there. At least there weren't at that time. So, I mean, we're sort of perplexed as to why this thing popped up now, or how it even popped up now. And is that something that we should come to you guys to send a letter out to get it, I don't know, can you get it expired or anything like that?
That may be possible, but that may require some actions in the D.C. court by a D.C. lawyer. So we'll have to talk about all that.
Okay, but you feel that this is something that...
Oh, yeah, if she was not convicted, then it's simple. It's got to be fixed at some point. If she was convicted of the charge, maybe she was convicted in absentia, because when you leave sometimes, or abscond, as we sometimes call it, You can be convicted without being present. Now, the other thing, though, is there is some restoration of firearms rights under Pennsylvania law, but that probably wouldn't apply to her because of the narcotic nature. They're using it to deny the concealed carry permit.
Okay. So I'm going to suspect that, I mean, it doesn't sound like it's an extremely complicated situation to get through.
No.
But it may involve a couple of hoops to jump through.
Did the first thing she should do is file the initial appeal of the background check, and require the government to dig further into it and see what they come up with. Put the homework assignment on them. Because once you file the appeal, you say, I wasn't convicted of that charge. If she's sure she wasn't convicted, or at least she never was told she was convicted, and she can say, I was never, to my knowledge, I was never convicted of that charge. Now, they may have showing it as a flag, as charged and disposition unreported, but then burden falls on them to go show that she was convicted.
Okay. And if that comes back with no conviction,
then they'll administratively correct the record.
Okay, so that's something we should handle on our end first, and see how that goes.
You should definitely file. Yeah, you should definitely file the challenge.
Give you guys a shout.
Yeah, you should definitely file the challenge of the Pennsylvania. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Definitely file the challenge of the Pennsylvania instant check. All right, you got your radio on.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, 540-0580. Mike, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Carl. I didn't hear you say my name.
That's okay.
Basically, what this comes down to is a DUI charge. It is at the highest level. It's a first offense.
Uh-huh.
As well as the story goes. But anyway, is there any... Should we have an attorney, or are you going to get what you're going to get? I guess is my first question.
Well, I always like when people ask that.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, yeah, you're going to get what you're going to get, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same thing as somebody who goes without an attorney. So I'll tell a little story, which makes me laugh. I went for an ARD not too long ago, and I went along with a client, and she sat down at a table where they're having her fill out paperwork for her ARD application at the courthouse. And the girl across from her said, "Why'd you get an attorney?" And she said, "Well, I wanted to have my attorney along with me, and I always, use them for different stuff." And the other girl's like, "Well, I got ARD and I didn't have an attorney. And, you don't need an attorney for this. They'll give you ARD without an attorney." She says, "What was your BAC?" I was in the highest tier. And the other girl says, "Well, I was in the highest tier too." And the girl goes, "Yeah, we're going to lose our license for 60 days. And my client goes, "Well, I'm only losing mine for a month." And the other girl goes, "Well, how's that?" And she goes, "Because I brought my attorney."
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Point taken. The other thing is, and I'll ask you this question, Carl. Of course, you get a lot of advice from everybody in the world, and some people have experience, but they're not attorneys. The person had bought at a package store and was visibly intoxicated, and then was spotted and then reported to the police, who later caught that person after they were out of their car. Now, I don't know if the police ever even saw them actually driving the car.
They can use circumstantial proof of driving.
Okay.
But then we get into time frames and all kinds of other issues.
And they're telling me that like state stores and distributors are treated differently, even though a person is stumbling around when they walk in or walk out with a package, that they're not treated like a bar is because they're not serving you. Is that true?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer.
I'm sure I have an opinion, but
Yeah, well, you can guess. If you have to guess, though, you can guess that the state probably protects itself, right?
Right.
The same way Congress protects themselves, and everybody protects themselves in the political world, and they can do insider trading, but you can't. And by the way, Harry Reid and Dianne Feinstein can conceal carry, but you can't. But I can go on and on. The other thing I'll share with you is, because that does sound like a case that's a little bit less than black and white completely. Yeah. It could still be a pretty black and white case when we get down into the facts, but maybe not. I had another guy who was ARD eligible, hired me. His mother was upset that he'd hired him. Young kid, he's about 19 or 20. Used his own money. His mother was basically yelling at him as he told me that it was a waste of his money to hire a lawyer because he could just get ARD. We went to the preliminary hearing. She showed up and sat in the back of the courtroom, and instead of waiving it, I saw a fatal flaw in the case, and I got it dismissed.
Really?
And my joke about that was a 1 in a million odds, Yeah. Particularly for all those things to come together. But I really enjoyed going over to say, "Hi, Mom. Nice to meet you. I heard you didn't want your son to hire me, but I guess you're sure glad he did. And so, again, I'm only offering those stories not to toot my own horn, but to tell people that in many circumstances, there is nothing but an ARD in your future on a first offense DUI.
Sure.
However, there are statistically significant enough occasions where we can either massage the ARD punishment or avoid ARD completely. I mean, we've even done, 3 stop sign violations.
Right.
And I know some people raise their arms up in the air and say, how can you do that? Well, the answer is there's a problem with the case, and the police officer knows that the lawyer knows it, and the DA knows that the lawyer knows it, so it's resolved at the lowest levels so that nobody has to lose later.
Okay. One last question. I'm sorry to keep you so long. Is the paperwork that you're to fill out ahead of time based on income, et cetera, is that for them to figure out the fines? Or
That's for them to figure out whether you qualify for a public defender or not.
So if we hired, say you,
yep,
we would not have to send this paperwork.
Correct.
They're not going to frown on us if we don't send this paperwork in.
Absolutely correct.
But you would contact them and let them know you are the attorney on this case.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Do you have hours Monday?
I will be in on Monday.
You will?
Yeah. If you want to just swing by the office Monday morning, I'll be sitting around with nothing to do.
Okay.
Well, I'll have lots to do, but I'll be there.
All right. Thank you so much for taking my call.
All right. Take care.
Bye now.
Got to go to break. 540-0580. We'll get back. We'll talk with Jane and Doug. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your Christmas questions, Hanukkah questions, Kwanzaa questions. What other holidays am I missing? None? A lot? See, we all think we know so much, but probably right now around the world, there's probably 1,000 different holidays going on that none of us know about. When I was a kid, they used to celebrate Dingus Day, which is around the same time as Fosnock Day down here. You take a pussy willow and you hit people on the nose that you like with the pussy willow frond. Yeah, I know. Interesting, isn't it? 540-0580. Who's next in line? Jane, you've been waiting patiently. What's going on? Hey, Jane.
Jane, Merry Christmas to you and your staff.
Well,
from a regular visitor. This gentleman is in the nursing home. He had a stroke following a heart operation. His physical being is coming along rather well, but his mental state is very fragile. He has lost a lot of his memory, and when you speak to him, he doesn't remember something you told him the day before. He's very easily influenced. His younger daughter is attempting to raid his assets. Now, the older daughter was named power of attorney, but the younger daughter continually speaks to the gentleman about going home from the nursing home, and she's told she owes a lot of money around different places. In fact, she even was taken to a friend's house to get money by the sheriff. She's told people that she owes money to, that when she gets her father home, she'll be able to pay her debts. What is to prevent her from taking him from the nursing home, for example, to a bank to get money? Now, the older daughter, the power of attorney, has the checkbook.
Well, I can tell you this. The power of attorney doesn't have power over the principal.
We understand
that. So as long as the principal's competent, he or she can do whatever they want.
Okay. We've been told that.
Yep.
Several times.
And so if he's incompetent, somebody can appoint a guardian. But if he's competent and simply wants to give his entire fortune away to some ne'er-do-well relative, he may.
Oh, boy.
I know.
And that's the long and the short of it, I guess. She's taken things out of his home and sold them.
As long as he's okay with it, it doesn't matter.
Uh-huh. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That's the way it works. 540-0580. Doug, what's going on?
Good afternoon, Carl.
How are you?
Good. Listen, the subject is a motor vehicle accident.
Uh-huh.
How does a jury place a dollar amount on pain and suffering? We've had this discussion with other folks, and I'm just curious to what your opinion is.
Well, it depends on the court you're in. In Pennsylvania, not federal court in Pennsylvania, but just Pennsylvania courts, a lawyer may not put a dollar value on pain and suffering. A lawyer cannot ask a jury or tell a jury how much to award except for things that are proven factually. So, for instance, Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in closing, let me say you saw that my client has $47,000 in medical bills, and I would ask you to award him his $47,000 for medicals. We also learned that he lost $35,000 in wages, and I'd ask you to award him $35,000 in wages, the total of the two being $82,000. Now, you're also entitled to award him pain and suffering, and I believe you should do it in an amount that will adequately compensate him. And let me remind you of all the things he went through, yada, 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 yada.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So then the jurors come back after the case is all over, and the number one question that judges get asked when they choose to talk to juries afterwards, because a lot of judges will dismiss everybody and just kind of chat with the jury to thank them for their service and maybe ask them some questions like, what'd you think, or, how'd you come to your decision, just out of curiosity. They don't have to answer, but I've been told that by judges that the number one question they get from jurors in civil suits in Pennsylvania is, how come none of the lawyers gave us a number to help us?
Yeah.
And he says, well, they can't. And then they go, oh, okay. As a result, here's what we believe to be the case, how juries get to this. No one jury is going to do it the same way, first of all, because they're given no instruction on how to do it. Number two, we know that the numbers presented to the jury, remember a minute ago I told you we had 82,000 between wage loss and so we know that when they go back and they're thinking about 82,000, they go, okay, he needs 82,000. How much more for pain and suffering? And somebody goes, well, let's just give him double that. And somebody else goes, no, let's give him 1.5 times that. And somebody else goes, let's give him 3 times that. And somebody else goes, let's give him 10 times that. And somebody else goes, I don't care, don't give him anything.
Yeah,
well, somehow that number became relevant in their calculation.
Yeah.
And so we know that even if the pain and suffering is objectively similar, if the specials, the things that we can prove in hard numbers, are low, we expect that the pain and suffering award on average will be low. If the specials are high, we expect on average that the pain and suffering award will be much higher.
Okay.
Does that help?
So they kind of move as a marriage then as the discussion goes on.
Yeah, and we've had cases where the jurors are just widely varying, and so they have to try to come to a compromise. And in a civil jury, they only need 10. They don't have to have a unanimous verdict to sign off on the verdict. So you can have one or two outliers who don't get a voice in calculating the amount or whether liability exists, etc.
Yeah. Well, that's what I need to know. You're always a help. You have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
540-0580. Bill, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Again, Merry Christmas to you and yours. My question relates to concealed carry.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I both have concealed carry permits. All of the handguns that are in the family are ones that I have bought in my name. I was told by someone the other day that with a concealed carry permit, you can only carry those weapons that are in your name. Is that true, or am I missing something?
I don't think that's true at all, and here's how I'm going to dispose of it in my mind. So because I don't know the answer, and I say there's nothing on a piece of paper that I know of right now that answers that yes or no. But here's what I do know, and so here's how I'm going to come to my conclusion. So I could be wrong, but here's what I'm pretty sure I'm right. I can give my son my handgun. I don't have to go anywhere to do it, right?
Right.
And we learned from a federal firearms licensed dealer the other day that I can even sell a handgun in a private sale, but I have to keep a bill of sale, or should keep a bill of sale, and make sure that person is not a criminal, or because if they find out later I knew they were a criminal, I could be in trouble. But as a result, Pennsylvania does not have gun registration, meaning that no particular gun has to be on a list or registered or anything. So no gun is really registered to you. And the the federal firearms license fellow even said, if I show up with a gun that my grandfather gave me 30 years ago in another state, and I moved into this state, nobody runs the serial number to see whether or not it's my gun or not. It will be run against a database to see if it was stolen and reported stolen at some point, right? ATF on the transfer forms. But the point being is, no gun belongs to you per se. It's not registered to you in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And since a husband and wife may freely transfer guns from one to the other, there's no way in my mind that I could imagine anybody being able to complain about either of you possessing, using, holding, or carrying the other's handgun.
Okay.
All right? Do you see how I've solved the problem without even having to look it up, just because about what we already knew?
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
All right, so.
Take care.
Yeah. No, fire away. 540-0580. Steve, you're on the air. Hey, Steve.
Hey.
What's going on?
All right. I have a friend. Back in 1989, 1990, he was in a bar, young and dumb, trying to make some money, and actually, wrong person overheard him. Long story short, he was pled guilty to possession with intent to deliver of 8 to 10 grams of cocaine back in 89, 90.
Okay.
Pled guilty. He was charged with nonviolence, served 9 to 23 months, and he wound up serving 7 months, clean bill of health since. He's always wondered, he's an upstanding citizen now, does he ever have a chance to be able to own a firearm for only self-protection in his own household?
He has a felony.
Yes, it was.
So under the federal law, he has, unless Pennsylvania has a restoration of civil rights statute, which would restore his civil rights, under federal law, he's prohibited from owning a firearm. Pennsylvania has no restoration of civil rights statute that would apply. So as a result, the only thing he could do was get a pardon and then an expungement, or a pardon rather. I mean, he didn't need the expungement. If he had the pardon, he'd be okay as well, because it would be pardoned. So, and the odds of getting the pardon are almost zero. So the simple answer is no. He won't be able to ever own a gun, most likely. There is a statute which would allow him to lift his Pennsylvania prohibitions, and if he has Pennsylvania prohibitions, and I'd have to analyze the exact charge he's convicted under, but if he did, he could lift those, and then he could use black powder weapons.
So he could keep a muzzle loader in his house.
Correct. And with
Do you have any advice on what avenue I might try and do some research on his behalf?
Well, I guess you'd have to find out what the charge is, but that's the best it gets. So you would just want to look up the PA. It's Title 18, like 6101 area, like that, 6100s. And you look up the Pennsylvania gun law. You can find the enumerated offenses, and then you have to see what he's convicted of and see if it falls under one of the enumerated offenses, which I think it does. And then if more than 10 years have passed since he got off probation, he can restore his Pennsylvania firearms rights. Then he can have a muzzle loader. Federal, there's no way to do it because we have no restoration of civil rights in Pennsylvania, and there's no federal relief because Congress refuses to fund it, even though the ATF technically could do it.
Looks like I got a little work planned out for me on behalf of a friend.
All right, brother.
Thank you much, sir.
All right, take care. 540-0580. We get back from the break. We'll talk with Bill and Seth. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. Merry Christmas, everyone. So let's get back to your questions. Bill, what do you want to know, Bill?
Yes, Merry Christmas, Carl.
Merry Christmas.
I've heard you talk about the free wills.
Yep.
How do I go about getting that? I'm 55, and I've never filled out a will.
Just call the office, 241-6070.
241-6070.
Yep, 241-6070.
Okay.
Tell them you want the free will kit, and they'll send it to you.
Oh, they'll send it. I have to go up to Carlisle.
Well, you're going to have to come up to sign the darn thing when we're done. But other than that, nope, not the first time.
They'll send me a kit then.
Yep.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
540-0580. Van, you're on the air. Hey, Van.
Hey, good afternoon. I got a question for you on carrying handguns exposed on your hip. I have a concealed permit, and I do quite often carry a firearm exposed. And I've got people who don't know the laws properly, and they're under the conception that you have to have a concealment firearm in order to carry a firearm exposed, which you do not have to have a
You do not have to have a concealed carry permit to carry a firearm exposed in Pennsylvania.
Right.
That said, many sheriffs have told people that if I issue you a concealed carry permit, I will take it away if I find out you're carrying open. I don't know if that's valid or not, but that is certainly a statement of some of the sheriffs who've issued them, and some of them even emboss it on the permit with like little rules or whatnot.
Because I've even had situations where the police have been called in, and I've been approached, and they've checked my ID and everything and found out that I'm not a criminal and don't have any type of criminal record. and they say, okay, thank you, have a nice day, because there's nothing they can do about it because there's no law against it.
Right.
So, it's just the police don't want you carrying firearms exposed on your hips. They would like you to carry them concealed and have a concealed permit.
Right,
so,
that's what they prefer.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that scares people, open carry. Some people are bothered by that. In some states, they prefer open carry. But who knows?
Right. Because, it's I've made the statements like, well, if you see somebody carrying a firearm exposed, you don't really have to worry about it because you know it's there.
Right.
If somebody's got one concealed, you don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. The flip side about open carry is theoretically it increases the likelihood of somebody trying to get your gun or going for it, which is always a possibility. But if it's holstered properly, it should be tough for somebody to just grab your own gun.
Right. You've always got a safety release on it in order to keep it in your holster. Right. All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Armin, take care. 540-0580. Seth, you're on the air.
You say Seth?
Yep.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
Good, man. What's going on?
Hey, I got two questions. Number one, basically, it's about setting up an LLC. I'm currently a contractor, and I run it under like a sole proprietorship right now.
Uh-huh.
However, I've always wanted to go through the ropes and set up the LLC just to protect myself. Anyways, I'm also looking at starting an online business, for instance, like an online store. Could I create like one like parent LLC and kind of branch off it with my day job and like the online store kind of thing, or how's that work?
Okay, repeat that question for me so I make sure I have it right.
So basically, I'm a self-employed contractor.
Okay.
And then I want to start an online business.
Okay.
So can I just start one LLC and then have like two DBAs essentially?
Yeah, you can. You can break it in. You can absolutely do that.
Okay, and so one LLC will be suffice for both of those businesses.
Yeah, and then what you want to do when you put your LLC together in your initial incorporation document, even though it's not really an incorporation, in your little creation document, you might want to reference that it's being created for purposes of. Now, depending on how successful your two businesses are or aren't, your tax professional at some point may want to talk to you about creating separate business entities for each so that they can maximize your paper value in each one.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have another question too. Actually, this pertains to my friend. Long story short, he cut his finger, went into the ER. They took an X-ray, they cleaned it, and then they stitched it back up.
Okay.
However, they didn't take an X-ray after the fact. He then proceeded to get two infections, one being a staph infection. Then about 3 months later, actually that happened like 2 weeks ago, they took him back in and he had to go under and get surgery to remove the remaining metal shards in there. And he contacted the patient advocate branch there at the hospital, and they basically said, don't let us know if you're going to contact a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Like, I guess my question is, how should he handle that situation? Should he go first to a lawyer, or should he wait to talk to the hospital? It sounds like they're just going to cut him a check possibly, or
I would go to a lawyer only because the true value of the case. And so if you want to contact me off the air, I have somebody I would refer you to.
Yeah.
Or I'll have Shane take your number here in a second, and we'll call you off the air in a few minutes with a referral for somebody that they should talk to. The lawyer I'm thinking of, if there's nothing that's going to maximize the return, he's not going to take the case, but he'll let him know, whether he should seriously think about it or not.
Yeah, I was just telling him at least talk to a lawyer and know what the threshold should be, so they're not going to lowball you if it's. Yeah,
you'd be surprised too, because I get these cases where people come in and they've been offered $5,000 and they're like, "Wow, I don't know, should I just take it, or I'm not trying to decide what to do. I mean, I don't really want to get you involved and only get it up to 7 or 8 or something." And and I look at them and I go, "This is worth 15 right off the bat. So why you're even talking about 5, 6, or 7, I don't know." Yeah. Other times I'm like, hey, apparently the adjuster didn't get the memo that you've healed up, and 5,000 is probably a little high, so you better take it today and get it out the door.
Gotcha.
All right,
okay.
Hold on, my friend.
All right, thank you.
All right, 540-0580, talk line number here. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Go to Rominger Law throughout the week if you want to learn more about our firm and what we do. You can also follow me on Facebook.com, and those of you who do follow me on Facebook probably know we like to post a lot of fun stuff on there. Actually, we found an article, I picked it up somewhere, that Dianne Feinstein and Harry Reid have both admitted, and there's video of each of them admitting to having been concealed weapons carriers. Both of them had times in their lives where they felt particularly threatened or that somebody may be endangering them. So they chose, can you believe this? They chose to get a weapon and carry it concealed to protect their person. And now, remember, Dianne Feinstein led the original assault weapon ban, and now she wants to do another one. And I'm not saying that I guess that makes her against concealed carry, but it's interesting that the people who lead the anti-gun crusade, who don't want armed people in schools and daycares and amusement parks and movie theaters and malls defending other people who are getting shot. However, when someone close to them or themselves feels threatened, find it perfectly appropriate. And this is the hubris of the senators, where they believe that they are capable. See, hi, I'm Dianne Feinstein. I am perfectly capable of carrying a firearm. I will never use it in anger, and I will never, wig out and hurt anybody. So I should have it because I am safe. Now, the rest of you people, you little people out there who couldn't make it to the Senate because you don't have the material to do it, don't have the gumption, you don't have the internal control or fortitude to carry this firearm. And that's sort of what they're saying. And they would deny that. That's what they're saying. But the hypocrisy is unbelievable. And so, if you go on Facebook, you can catch the article. It leads to some links. We put a lot of good material up like that. So it's Carl with a K, Rominger, Rominger. You can follow me on Facebook. We're going to go to break. Greg, when we get back, we'll talk to you. 540-0580. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. Oh, fast approaching is the Christmas day, so hopefully you're going to get your shopping done. Driving over here today from Carlisle, it seemed as if everybody was on the road driving. I don't know if that's quite possible, but it sure seemed like it. 540-0580. Greg, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, quick question on the LLC. I'm a sole proprietor as well, and I don't have any employees, just myself. And I was told by an attorney that an LLC would offer very, very limited protection from lawsuits and things like that. God forbid I burned a house down or something like that. Right. I would still get sued because I don't have any employees to blame.
No, an LLC, properly done LLC will protect you. But it has to be done properly. It has to be maintained. You got to have all the rigmarole in place. That said, a good general liability policy will give you just as much protection.
Yeah, that's what he said. Just up your insurance and don't worry about it.
And that's so. Whenever you create an LLC or an S corp or any of those things, you can bring on tax overlays and administrative burdens that wouldn't exist for a sole proprietor necessarily.
Yeah.
And so that's why people counsel against them. On the other hand, if you're going to get a partner, or you're planning on getting a partner down the road, figuring out how to do an LLC sometimes isn't a bad idea.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
All right, Greg. Take care.
Bye.
540-0580. If you want to talk about anything, you call in here. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. As you know, I'm an attorney here in the mid-state. Practice all over. So, again, 540-0580. We'll answer your questions here on the air. I got some availability on the caller board if you want to call in. I saw that a judge has just ruled that Supreme Court Justice Joan Ori Melvin, who's on suspension from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court right now. We're a seven judge court, and they're down to 6 right now. She's suspended, and she's facing criminal prosecution out there in Pittsburgh because of her sister's campaign. Her sister, the senator, running her campaign for judge out of the senatorial office, and she was on the Superior Court before that. She's scheduled for trial on January 23rd on charges she allegedly used her state-paid staff to run her election campaigns for the state's highest court when she was a judge on the Superior Court. And her sister, I think, is also, the one sister's already been convicted of some things. And wanted a new trial because of certain documents or some things. I'm trying to figure out the whole rigmarole. But long and short of it, it's kind of interesting because she was claiming that as a justice on the Supreme Court, she shouldn't have to go through a criminal case. It should be done by discipline on the court itself, and that she was immune from the executive branch. Now, that was just ruled against. But it is interesting. What she's saying basically is I shouldn't be able to be tried criminally because I'm immune as a judge. The court itself should punish me. Interestingly, if she were to win that motion, I guess the court could jail her on some kind of contempt maybe, but they don't really have power to put people in jail on an ethics violation. So it would have been an interesting win for her. 540-0580. Carl, you're on with Carl.
Good afternoon, Carl. Does PA expunge convictions or guilty pleas?
We do not.
Okay. How about I was online looking, would they do a pardon? They won't. Or
we have a pardon process. It's been a million years of backlog.
Okay. So, all right.
And it's unlikely, unless you committed a relatively minor crime, a lot of time has passed and you have a pretty good song and dance.
Okay. All right. Because this was, I talked to you a while back. But
and I want to remind,
like 1982,
and I want to remind everybody while we're on the air, before you plead guilty, before you just send your kid into court to take his medicine, or before you say something stupid like it's just juvenile court so it won't be on his permanent record, or before your buddy goes and pleads to something because he doesn't need a lawyer because he did it, he's sure he did it, and they're just offering him probation. These convictions, these records, these mars on your history follow you forever.
Oh, definitely. It's like filling out a job application now. It's like, should I say yes or no?
Right. And if you lie and they later catch it, they can fire you at any time for it.
Oh, definitely. And I also spent the money to go back and get my criminal report and a driving report also from the Pennsylvania State Police and PennDOT. So I got the whole thing there.
And so I'm throwing that out there for people to remember that they really shouldn't just quote take their medicine. And even worse, here's how it gets even worse. Imagine three people, right? Imagine three people who have all committed the same minor crime.
Right.
Two of them get lawyers and one doesn't. The one knocks it down to a summary. The other guy gets his dismissed on some other alternative thing, and one guy pleads to the misdemeanor. When the other two guys go to apply for jobs, they both get to say they don't have a criminal history.
Right.
The third guy does, but nobody did anything different except two of them were smart enough to hire a lawyer.
Right. Oh yeah. Because back then I did.
Well, no, and I know, and I'm just trying to, because I'm trying to help everybody going forward. We can't fix the past. We can only prevent the future, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you can't prevent the future. It's going to happen anyhow.
What's that?
Because you can't prevent the future, but you may be able to control the future to some extent.
Right. Okay.
Of course, you could always hope that we drive off the fiscal cliff, that Iran and Israel go to war, and all civil society breaks down, and then nobody's going to care about your criminal record anymore.
You got that right, God.
All right, brother.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, Merry Christmas. 540-0580. Jim, you're on the air. Hey, Jim.
Oh, hey, good afternoon, Carl.
What's going on?
Okay, I got a friend that has a side business. He builds motors for race cars. It's a cash, side business, and he's always wondered what would happen if somebody, for some unforeseen reason, said, "Oh, you messed up the motor and it caused a wreck, and now I'm out a $100,000 car," and they sue him. Would he have protection from a standpoint? Would you recommend anything, an LLC or something, so he'd be able to protect his household from his
Yeah, it's
business?
interesting. Was he married?
Pardon?
Is he married?
Say again?
Is he married?
He is married.
Okay, if he and his wife have the house titled jointly, and the car's titled jointly, and their bank accounts titled jointly as tenants in the entirety, which is the magic terms, Mr. and Mrs. Smith as tenants in the entirety, then nobody can reach the marital assets. So that's his first great protection. He can talk to an insurance person and say, "Hey, I'm interested in insurance. How does what kind of insurance policies would you have in case something were to happen?" And his third would be to get an LLC. The tenant's in the entirety protection is an easy protection and powerful one, but doesn't survive divorce. The LLC is not a bad idea, and then have the LLC actually sell the motors. That would give a level of protection, but again, he's going to need to protect it. Now, the other outlier here is, what are the odds of him doing in an engine being traced back to the cause of the accident? Because they'd still have to prove it was his negligence that caused it. So the likelihood of a claim is very, very low. But I guess if one gets through, and we're talking about a race car issue and a negligence and probably a death, right?
Could be anything.
Right, or serious injury, then the risk would be against catastrophic injury. So I think the LLC is not a bad idea. I think it's critical that he just makes sure everything's titled in the home assets as tenants in the entirety.
You're going to give a guy a Merry Christmas, a present with a lot of peace of mind. Thank you.
All right, brother. Bye. 540-0580. Candace, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Carl. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. My question is, I was having breakfast, and my niece's manager, who is a foreigner to the country, was showing me pictures on his phone. He moved into an apartment in July 14th and paid $700, and he showed me mold was growing on the furniture already. And I believe there was a flood there last year.
Right.
And my niece only told him to talk to me because I'm a fighter, and he doesn't know where to go. And he went to the landlady, and she said she would evict him if he complained. He has pictures of the mold, of the furniture, right. And he just moved in July, and he doesn't know what to do.
So he just moved in, and now mold forming on stuff. There's that much moisture in there. First thing he needs to do is get like a mold inspector or a home inspector, somebody to come in.
That's what I thought, yes.
And gather some evidence in a report.
Okay.
Then he may be able to sue the landlord for his damages, and he may be able to break the lease and get out of there.
Right. Okay.
All right, that's step one.
Okay.
I got to go.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, take care. 540-0580. I'll be here for another hour answering your legal questions as you drive around looking for those Christmas presents. And, of course, don't forget to get mine. You can send it to the station right here. They'll deliver it to me. If it's too big, you can have it freight dropped to my office in Carlisle. 540-0580. See you guys after the break.